So, welcome back. I'm very excited to have a special guest here today with me. And Laura, that's her name, she will introduce herself in a second. And I are going to talk about nutrition and the upgrades that our physical bodies are going through when we talk about ascension and opening up to more of our inherent gifts, really, and our abilities. And while our own perception about the world and energy is changing, also our physical body is going through a lot of changes, and that has a lot of consequences or results and effects on foods we tolerate and foods we don't tolerate anymore, and even the ascension symptoms that are also present physically. We want to talk about them today because a lot of people think they get sick or there's something wrong with them, and we want to sort of debunk that all. And while I was going through my own process, Laura has been such an amazing angel to help me understand my body more, reconnect with my body, and really rebuild a relationship with my body and my own physical needs. So we want to talk about all of that because Laura is also specialized in herbs and herbal alchemy. She's a Virgo, so she's a very much an alchemist, and I love that. And she knows a lot about herbs and the healing powers of herbs and of Mother Nature. And so get excited because this girl is a powerhouse. So first of all, before I take away everything, welcome, Laura. Introduce yourself. What is your magic all about?
Oh my gosh. Hi. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me. What is my magic all about? Well, I've really basically encompassed it into, or put it into 3 different containers. I'm an intuitive energy healer, which is a combination. I really developed my own energy healing modality, which I'm a light language channel, a Reiki energy healer, and then just a channel for higher consciousness, basically. And so with that, I've been able to, tap into multidimensional communication and use that as a resource to connect with other people and really facilitate a pretty powerful healing modality. And, within that allows, it connects with everybody's own energetic blueprint, which allows them to experience any sort of healing that needs to be done, as well as any sort of, clearing. So any energetic blocks that are in their system, then that one modality works to clear that. And then just to help them accelerate through their awakening process. Mm-hmm. And then I am a Virgo, so I do love, all things earthy. So I love herbs. I love working with food and nutrition. I'm a holistic health coach and a self-educated herbalist. Really, I've got a lot of formal training, but a lot of my own experience is just my inherent wisdom, and just really, I enjoy tinkering with a lot of stuff. So I will, and very thorough with my process, just will try it and research every different possible way that an herb can work and interact with other things, as well as food and specific diet. So just really working through, what type of diet, what type of foods work best with specific energies. I am such an energetic being and such an empath that I'm able to tap in and tune in and feel energy of other people. So can really tell like when something is off, even with food and nutrition. So a lot of times you can call that like a medical intuitive, whenever you can sense energy from other people and then feel what's going on in their body and really tell what's off there, and what needs to be adjusted and realigned. I've learned a lot with nutrition, and learning that, whenever we go through any sort of trauma or just get a little bit overwhelmed or overworked, that there's a lot that you can do to use to support yourself with herbs and nutrition. So you don't have to, at the end of the day, like, we're all our own healers, but you don't have to know, you don't have to have all of this formal training to tap into your own inherent wisdom or to learn how to, learn about a specific herb, or learn about a specific food that's going to support you energetically. And so, I've really helped a lot of people with just kind of working through that, where, we do energy work, but then we also need to be able to make sure that we're supporting ourselves energetically with food and herbs too. So we can do all of this healing work, and we can do, tons of yoga, and we can do, all the magical things, but food is a huge energy. And we want to use, earth and mother nature just to support ourselves and make sure that we're staying in energetic alignment with that, to stay healthy and keep our vibration high.
Yeah, and I love it so much because, as I mentioned earlier, we all went through a lot of upgrades and changes this year especially, and if you are already, or if you've already been very intuitive and very sensitive, I would say, and this year has been pretty much a challenge. And I've noticed that within myself. I mean, I've always been really into supplements and studying herbs. I have Venus in Virgo, Jupiter in Virgo, so there's a lot of Virgo energy in me too. Not that only Virgos love that, but it's, the prime example. But this year was especially challenging because, usually when we are faced with so much changes in the world, we go back to the very things that help us cope. And for me, that has been, for the majority of my life, my eating disorder. So I lost a lot of weight this year, and I've been really, really struggling in that area again. And then at the same time, my body was changing. So the foods that usually worked for me and that felt quote unquote safe enough didn't work anymore. So I was just like, fuck, what am I even doing? What is my body trying to tell me? And so that was very triggering. But then working with you, and really, you helped me understand why my body is, for example, bloated, why all of these things are happening, why I might have diarrhea, like why I'm just like going through so much, because it actually was challenging before, and I lost a lot of weight, but I also lost a lot of energetic weight and baggage. And now I have a new foundation, and I even had a healing session with you where you literally were saying, we build a new foundation for you now, right? And these are not just energetically the tools that you can use, but also that's how you can support yourself with the energy of Mother Nature and the healing of Mother Nature. Because I've never really said that I want to go vegan, especially because I've been so restrictive in the past. But now it's not even that I restrict myself, I'm craving that. And I'm allowing myself to eat exactly what I crave and what my body is telling me. And even that is just like such a shift, where we are so conditioned, by the food industry in general. Even if you don't have, a story with eating disorder, it's just like, we are programmed with food as well, right? It starts with the ingredients that are that is in our food. And the culture, like in America, everyone eats out, for example, so other people energetically impact your food. And you don't even know how to cook for yourself, and you don't even know how to infuse your food and your meals with your own energy, and with like loving energy and healing energy. And all of these things might sound very woo-woo, but we live in an energetic universe, so everything is energy. And the more sensitive you get, the more you feel that. And I know that's something that you said to me at the very beginning, even before I went into a plant medicine ceremony. You said, be aware that it will open you up and it will change you. Also, like with food that you agree with, coffee might not work for you anymore. And I was like, oh no, that won't happen. But it was exactly what happened. And I'm like, no.
Right. And it is. And, as we go through this process of evolution, each level requires a different, it really even requires, more review about what you're eating. And, it requires each level requires a new you, period. Like, so you have to look at, who we're spending time with, how we're eating, what we're eating, how we're getting our food, all the way to the core of like, you can eat a salad at a restaurant, and with the exact same ingredients, that salad may not agree with you at the restaurant, versus you go and get local greens and all of your ingredients that you found yourself, and prepare it at home. And it support you and it have a completely different energy. So we don't know, where those ingredients came from, what's going on in the kitchen while it's being made. All of that is energy, and that's going into our system. And it's not to say, don't ever go out to eat, or don't ever do this, or don't ever do that, but it's something where it's worth paying attention to. And the more that we prepare our own food, the more that we go, and even if you're foraging at the grocery store, you're hunting your own food, and it's a real simple way to even just start to develop your own intuition of like figuring out what your body wants. Like, you're seeing all of the colors in the grocery store. If you're in the produce section, you're like, I think I need apples, or I think I need oranges, or, I need some, I want some greens, or I want this, or I want that. And so all of those things are really helpful just to kind of start. But, a big important factor is to always make sure that, as we're continuing to go through this process of evolution and expansion, we're essentially mutating. Like, our bodies are, and we've talked about it before, where it's like certain phases, you may need more meat in your diet, or dairy, or wheat, or, any of that kind of stuff may support you energetically. But and some of those things can essentially lower your vibration, but that can also be supportive, right? Like, if you're way too high and way too far out in the ethers, you may need something to help you ground. And so sometimes hello, same here, like, I'm like, all have access to this all of the time, where it's like, okay, what are things that I can use to help ground myself and nourish myself properly to bring me back into my body. So it's really important for us to be in our body. We came to Earth to have a human experience, and staying out in the ethers all day long is not what we're really here and meant to do. We're here to serve and support each other. So finding ways to ground and to be in your body and inhabit your body, but doing it in a way that supports you energetically, so that you are, really firing on all cylinders and operating as a clear conduit for, whatever you're here to do on this planet.
Absolutely. And actually, that's something I wanted to also address when I talked about the diet industry, or like not the food industry, not diet industry. What I noticed is that, and even that's why I love human design so much. No decision ever comes from the mind, but when we decide on food and what we want to eat, most people make the decision based on their minds. And I've never really thought about that aspect of not making decisions from the minds, right? And then I realized, wow, I'm never actually asking my body, right? Because of the past, obviously when you had an eating disorder for the majority of your life, you think about calories, you think about safety, you think about all of these things. Basically, you're always in your head when it comes to food, right? It's an OCD thing in your head, and you never ask your body. And it is a pattern, and it is a habit that you also want to break through. And it's a great analogy really for everything in life, where no decision comes ever from the mind, because that's the very thing that programs us. And a lot of us live in that very same way, where we are completely disconnected from the language and the insights and wisdom of our bodies. And that's even what we see in 2020, where there are agendas out there that feed off of that, where they know you are so disconnected from your body that you don't even trust that the signals your body sends you are safe. Like, if you have a fever, it's not that you are dying, it's actually your body helps you get rid of toxins. If you are bloated, and that's a thing that I love that you taught me on that, because it has been a struggle for the majority of my life, like gas and bloating, which actually was one of the main triggers for my eating disorder, because food made me feel uncomfortable, right? And I understood, okay, it's because I haven't digested my emotions properly, that's gas. But then also it's all of the toxins that are still in my body, right? In my liver, in my kidneys, in my gut, essentially, which, I know goes back to me as a child having I took a lot of antibiotics, and no one ever taught me that after antibiotics you need to really take care of your gut. No one, right? And so obviously that whole thing is a vicious cycle that I was never really able to break through, especially with then, you know, having anorexia and starving, and, you know, my gut was completely all over the place. And so when you start eating again, food gets very triggering because it's not easily digested. And I know we talked about that because you were recommending me beans to get rid of the toxins, and it was the most thing that I was so afraid of them because they were like the very food that gave me gas. And you helped me understand, no, it's your liver detoxing. And you literally said to me, after a while it will get better. And I had diarrhea for most of October because my body was cleansing so much. Scorpio season, right? It rules the gut. And after that, all of a sudden I was able to digest beans. Like, it was like, up until this point, I'm now such an addict for beans. I love them, right? They are so beautiful, and my body loves them too. Is literally craving them. And now I understand why all of the things happened, and that it was not my body fighting me or my body fighting food, actually helping me, right?
Yeah, and it's so simple. Beans are so humble and so helpful in so many ways. And, you know, I mean, we could just use it as a blanket statement for people. And I'll go back to beans in a minute, but I wanted to just kind of, you know, even when you're talking about, you know, and your very early stages of childhood and experiencing, you know, and having all of those antibiotics in your system. You know, even what we inherit, like from our parents, like from you know, if we're able to, you know, ask our moms like what her pregnancy was like, and what's going on while we're in the womb, like that's whenever we start to initially, you know, like that's what's laying the foundation for what our health is going to be like. And so we can be, you know, if it was a really stressful experience, then those stress hormones start to integrate into our system there immediately, you know, and then whatever the birth experience was like, and how that all happened, if it was really stressful. Like for me, they had to pull me out with those, forceps. And, you know, so a lot of that was a very stressful experience. And so those stress hormones are in our body. And then all of the things that we accumulate over our lifetime, not just with what we ingest, not just with, you know, prescription medications, which is, you know, for some of us a lot, like a lot of us may have taken even just, you know, supplements over the counter medicine, or too much antibiotics, or been given antidepressant medication or behavioral modification kind of stuff.
No, even the pill, which like almost every woman.
The birth control pill destroys our gut bacteria, you know, and so that can affect, you know, it can also lead to, you know, depression and mood disorders. And so a lot of people that are on the pill then also have depression. And so, you know, I don't want to be, I know there's a lot of people that are really strong advocates for the pill, but it's also important to know that you want to support, you need to also learn how to support your system in, you know, helping it to properly eliminate. If we don't get enough soluble fiber, then, which is what beans do, they have the highest concentration of soluble fiber. So we need at least 15 grams of soluble fiber per day. Otherwise, what happens is these bile salts that are in our gut, they get reprocessed through the liver, and then it just turns into toxic waste, and that continues to recycle through our system. So if we don't get that soluble fiber, it doesn't get eliminated into the toilet, it just continues to, so it's just waste running through our system. And that's where allergies come in, that's where autoimmune disorders come in, that's mood disorders. I mean, that's really almost the whole gamut of health conditions right there, is all of that stuff just continuing to run through our body. And when we experience trauma, you know, our body is processing a lot of adrenaline, all those additional hormones, and if we don't get that fiber, then that also doesn't get eliminated from our system.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, the gut is not for nothing the second brain, and it's the brain of our body. And essentially, really, you know, that's something I realized so much recently too. It's where we digest our emotions and where we don't digest our emotions. And because I say that over and over again, we live in an emotional dark age, and 2020 brought up so many unresolved emotions. I feel like that's also why people have so many physical symptoms and reactions. And of course, then we can also talk about the coronavirus and that part. But I feel like, even the fact, or what you just shared with beans and soluble fiber, if we can digest, if we can support our healing and ascension process with foods that actually help us like get rid of the density quicker, right? Where it's literally out of your system while you digest. Obviously, drinking a lot of water is a big part of that too. We are 90% water, and flushing it out. But food has I feel like food is really an amplifier on your ability to process trauma and the trauma that comes up, which again in 2020 is like a lightning speed, like everything fast track. Every single day there's a new chapter of your trauma for like the whole of your whole life being revisited and being like brought to the surface. So the more you can support yourself, the better. And I love that you also incorporate a lot of herbs, because it's something that I wouldn't say I haven't taken seriously, but I just never realized how small little herbs like that and just sprinkled into your diet can make such a big difference. I never realized that. And when we were talking about gut issues, you gave me so many herbs that are supportive, like dandelion, burdock, and I mean, it's incredible how much that soothes you and how your body is reacting to that and absorbing it, and it's really supportive. And it's beautiful, because it's nature, right? And it feels like Mother Nature is supporting your ascension process if you see that in that way, and you absorb her energy, and it's just so beautiful. And now at this point, it feels so foreign to me to just take a capsule of something that I get in a plastic bottle, because on the plastic bottle there's like whatever property, and I'm like, I don't know, I just want to go out in nature and grab something, or go to my local store and get like the root of it, and not like processed in whatever many ways. So yeah, tell us a little bit about why you love to work with herbs so much.
Sure. Yeah, well, and exactly what you said too, if you go to, if you have an allergy, or if you have something, and we go to like the pharmacy and buy something over the counter, or if we get a prescription, that may have been something that, stemmed from an herb at one point, but it has now been manufactured into a single compound, where an herb has, like one specific herb has all of these different constituents that's meant to work with your body, because we are the earth, right? And so then the herbs are meant to work in harmony with our system. That oftentimes it's not just one thing that's going on. It's kind of like a domino effect, where it's like, okay, well, the root cause of this was that maybe I was stressed a month ago, and then I constricted, and all of that stress and trauma got stuck in my body, and then it's now here we are, and it's now manifested into my physical body, and I have like, say, a rash, or I'm not digesting properly, or I've put on weight, or I'm not focused, like maybe I'm super scattered all the time. And so using herbs is one way to quickly, support ourselves and bring things back into balance. And so really, from a collective perspective, the two things that we could, recommend for anybody, right now that's completely safe is, take like 1 to 2 cups of beans every day, and then drink oat straw tea. And so oat straw is just super calming, super nourishing to the system, doesn't really have any interaction with anything. I've tested it with all different kinds of things in different ways, that it shouldn't be harmful in any kind of way. It's just going to calm and support your nervous system. And so an oat straw, you can go to your local herb shop, or you can order it online. I prefer and recommend people go to their local herb shop, just because it's usually, local is always better, but if not, then you can always order online too. So oat straw is a big one. It's good for, it's balances your mood. It has a ton of nutrients that help with your digestion. It helps, it really, it's kind of an adaptogen, so that, you know, if you're like overexcited, then it's going to bring you into balance. And then, you know, so it can either give you energy or it can make you, help you go to sleep. So just depending on where you are, it's just going to kind of bring you back into balance with that. So really love oat straw for that reason. And there's a bunch more. Like I could talk all day and do a whole class just talking about herbs, which I know you and I have done before. So yarrow is another one. So yarrow is a really big one as well. But for anybody who's pregnant, I wouldn't recommend doing yarrow, but otherwise yarrow is really great. Oat straw is more nourishing and calming, and yarrow also has a calming effect, but it's more healing. So like it'll go through and heal and clear and break up a lot of stuff in our system. So if you have anything really big, like anything in our lungs, so anybody who, you know, is affected by, you know, COVID, and it'll start to break those, you know, all of that mucus up and loosen that. It generates heat, so it will, you know, make you sweat a lot, which is great, like, because then that's your body working to, you know, get all of those toxins out of your system. But anything, like if you eat anything even that makes you feel energetically off, or it gives you a headache, or, you know, feels too heavy, you can always drink yarrow tea, and it's a really great balancer that will bring you back into balance pretty quickly. So super great for inflammation. Yarrow is a superhero herb. So those are, I guess, if we said desert island herbs, yarrow and oat straw are probably.
Yeah, and all the beans. I swear.
All the beans. Beans are so humble and so cheap, you know, and like we pretty much can get them anywhere, and you can buy dried beans and for a couple of bucks and eat those. So
yeah, we had a bunch of beans on Christmas Eve, and basically so many leftovers that, I mean, we had like bowls of beans left, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I can't just like eat savory beans all day. So what I love about beans is, especially black beans, I love to also do sweet stuff with them. Like you can do brownies with them. I love to just blend them and with cacao, which I know we talked about cacao as well, but just a little bit of cacao, or like, you know, cinnamon and banana, and then it's just like a sweet, like dip kind of cookie dough experience. So it doesn't have to be boring, because obviously it can sound very boring. I just eat beans all day and maybe rice, but you can, I mean, there's so many varieties with that, what you can do with all of the food. You can do bean pancakes, like just get it, you know, creative. And that's also the beautiful thing about it. If you just have one ingredient, how many different meals can you do with one ingredient or two ingredients? You can do so much.
And there's so many bean pastas out there now too. Like there's the lentil pastas, and they're usually, and they've gotten really good quality now. So like there's a lot of them that are just made with beans. So like I always tell everybody to try, like, opt for the highest quality whenever you're shopping for food and ingredients, but also look for, you know, as many one ingredient foods as possible, or limited ingredients, right? So if you look at the back of the ingredient label and it's a whole paragraph of stuff, especially things that you don't know what they are, you know, it's probably not going to be good for your body. There are tons of bean pastas out there. There's like black bean pasta, lentil pasta, edamame pastas. There's all kinds of those, and I buy a lot of those, and I like to do raw sometimes, so you can still just soak them in warm water, a lot of them, and they'll still essentially be raw, and then you can mix them with whatever, like make a yummy pesto, or, you know, sun-dried tomatoes, or throw some greens in there with it, or roasted mushrooms, or all kinds of good stuff. So yeah, you can get, there's so many things that you can do with beans, and people make, you know, you can make black bean burgers and black bean brownies and
everything. Yeah, and I wanted to touch again on you know, the intelligence of the body and what your body is craving. Because, you know, aside from beans, and if you are craving fresh fruit and vegetables, I really invite everyone, because that's what I started, and we talked about that too. See your body as your own study object, meaning that, you know, when you crave something, ask yourself why. Like, you know, I live my life like that. I ask everything. I'm asking myself why. Like, why did I attract this person? Why did I attract this in my life? Why am I feeling this? Like, I always want to know why something is happening. I don't just accept something happening, you know, because I always know that there's a deeper meaning and a message behind everything. So even if you are in the supermarket and you wanted to, that literally happened to me. I wanted to buy strawberries. And so I was determined to go there, buy strawberries. And I was in the supermarket, and all of a sudden there was this melon. And I was just like, I want to have melon. I'm like, no, I'm going to go with strawberries. So I bought the strawberries. I went out of the shop and wanted to walk home, but I couldn't stop thinking about that melon. So I went back and bought the melon as well. And it was like an orange melon, like a honeydew melon, I think they're called. And so I just, you know, I was back home and I was not craving those strawberries. My mind decided strawberries, so I got them, but my body was saying, no, melon. And I don't know what it was about that melon, but it made me think about even, you know, why we crave certain colors and how that relates to the chakras. And maybe there's a deeper meaning of that. You know, maybe you're going through a sacral period, or you know, a solar plexus period, or a root period, whatever it is, and you crave certain colors, or green, and you crave a lot of heart. And so I think, you know, that's also our body letting us know, hey, this is what you're going through right now. Or even, I know we talked about that too, where all of a sudden you crave foods from your childhood again, because you go through a childhood healing experience. You know, for me, that sometimes even shows up in the way I can speak, because all of a sudden I only think German, even though I only talk English, you know. But then also all of a sudden I have a hard time speaking English, because my body goes through a deep childhood wounding, you know, healing. And so I'm craving childhood foods. I'm speaking in German. It's like, and you know, usually I could think I'm so off, but it's really my body letting me know, hey, today we are in this kind of period of your healing experience. And I think that's very soothing to know that, you know, everything is actually perfect. You know, there's nothing wrong with you.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, it's always a matter of, you know, developing a really strong, you know, intuitive guidance system within yourself, and also having a lot of space to trust yourself too, and say, you know what, I'm safe to trust myself in this process. That we do have so much judgment around food, and we have so many people out there telling us what specific diet, how to eat, you know, what, it's just, it can get confusing, it can get overwhelming. And, you know, we can have this estranged relationship with our bodies where, you know, we don't trust our bodies, and we don't really love our vehicle that we're in. And we talked about this earlier this year too, where it's like, especially this year where we were all forced to stay at home and kind of meet ourselves again, a lot of us were faced with, you know, I went through different moments in time where I had different memories come up, and I was meeting, you know, older versions of myself. And I really spent time in that space saying, okay, you know what, in my like teens and 20s, I like to bake a lot, and I don't really eat a lot of sugar. I don't eat a lot of anything, but I went through this phase of baking cupcakes, and I was eating cupcakes. And I was like, you know, I fully immersed myself in revisiting a certain part of my life, and was making full, you know, cupcakes with the butter and the eggs and the sugar and everything, and making them myself. And it was an experience that I enjoyed. It didn't make me feel so great at the end of the day. Like it lowered my vibration a little bit, but I needed to be lowered at that time, actually. So it was like, that was something that needed to happen. There was nothing good or wrong or bad or anything about doing that. And then I have more awareness around it. It's like, I don't need cupcakes anymore. I don't want the cupcakes. I wanted to go through that experience and just kind of relive and, you know, work through some things that I hadn't worked through before. And so that's fine. And so it's really a delicate balance whenever we talk about intuitive eating, where we say, okay, I intuitively want to eat a cupcake right now. And it's like, well, what place is that coming from? You know, are you wanting to Like, are you wanting to fill a space somewhere emotionally where you need to maybe look at, you know, visiting some emotions that need your attention? Or are you intentionally going through this and saying, you know what, I'm going to eat a cupcake right now because for whatever reason, you know? Or it could be, I'm hanging out with my grandmother, who's my favorite human ever, and I love grandmother's cupcakes, and so I'm going to eat a cupcake with her, and it's a beautiful, loving experience. And so no judgment there of, you know, for any of us, whatever we're going through. But it is important to know, you know, where you are, and then how you can support yourself energetically, especially as you move and shift and continue to evolve. And as you move into, you know, our ascension process and you ascend through those levels, you want to be able to know how to support yourself with food, and also to help release any trauma, because even just going through the awakening process can sometimes be traumatizing for some of us who are, you know, so intuitive and so psychic, and you start coming into your psychic gifts.
Yes.
You know, our ears start ringing, we're getting these headaches, we're getting, you know, you start coming into more of your clear senses, then you really want to work to help support yourself so that you don't, to keep you from falling so far into depression and to, you know, and a lot of those foods can really depress us when we need to, you know, look at how can I support myself better? How can I, you know, leverage food to support me? You know, we may not be able to have access to go through, you know, therapy a couple of times a week, or, and you can just use something simple like eating more beans. I promise you will help calm your system down so much.
Yeah.
So,
And I love that too, because I want to say we forgot about it, but you know, I've been talking about that so much, especially in 2018, 2019, leading up to 2020, that it's really time for us to build home within ourselves, right? To build that safety, security inside of ourselves, to build that foundation inside of ourselves. And that really starts with nurturing ourselves and becoming our own mother again, right? And, you know, most of us have never really learned that, and then we also have maybe mother wounds or childhood wounds, and we are literally all like collectively in a stage of inner child healing. So what can we do for our inner child? Like the best thing we can do is to nurture, and that starts with food and how we take care of ourselves. And really, even when I cook for myself, I see myself from the outside, and I'm like visualizing how I am my own mother, and I'm cooking a meal for me, and I'm like, so, and now we like sit down and we, you know, pray and infuse the food with love and light, and like I'm just really seeing myself as my own mother. And that already starts like the healing process towards your own mother, no matter what relationship you have with her, because she didn't know better either, right? And so it's like no judgment towards our parents, because they went through their own stuff, and we literally have the privilege, we have to say that, that we can focus on our ascension and our spiritual growth and evolution and all the healing that generations before us, they didn't have the tools, the access, the insights. And yeah, so it's like it's on us. We have the responsibility to, you know, reclaim our power, but then also to nurture us. And we have another mother, and that's Mother Nature, right? And we can let her heal us. And yeah, I just think it's really beautiful to see the relationship to food and nurturing, especially from someone, you know, food was my enemy for half of my life. It's so healing. It's so healing. And I know that it's not just healing for me because of my story, it's healing for everyone, especially when you feel lost in this world, you don't know what's happening, but you have the safety and the security that you can cook your meal and it makes you feel good. Like that's a safety and a certainty that you can, you know, make sure and depend on every single day. And no matter what's going on in the world, you can just shut the world off and cook your meal, and you are just in the process of connecting to nature, connecting to your body, connecting to the food that you're cooking, eating that, and the world outside doesn't matter for a second.
100%.
Yeah. So Laura, since we have been talking about trauma, and you have a very exciting course coming up, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have decided to launch a 4-week course on healing from stress and trauma naturally. So, and during the 4-week course, we are going to be talking about, you know, just understanding trauma and what trauma actually is. So, I mean, trauma has been, a lot in a lot of our experience this year, more so than ever. So I know a lot of people have, 2020 has been essentially traumatizing to some of us, most of us. And, when we think about trauma is not some big thing that, is reserved for, people who went to war or experienced very severe abuse. Trauma is part of our human experience. And so it can be as simple as, us driving in the car and then, a deer run out in front of us and us experience a charge or an activation. And, typically our body will complete the trauma cycle in that experience where you're like, oh my gosh, you may gasp or you may shake or you may, do whatever. And then you've shaken off the trauma, and then you continue to go on about your life. But nowadays, like there's so many different ways that we can be traumatized where, we haven't learned proper boundaries and we break our own boundaries. So, or, just not being able to complete the trauma cycle at any point, then all of that energy gets stuck in our body. And then that translates to, mood disorders, digestive issues, all kinds. There's a whole list of illnesses that happen when trauma gets stuck in our body. Weight gain, we're not able to, sleep, or we're over activated all the time, or, just angry or emotional, other kinds of emotions that are just stuck in our system. And so I've developed a simple way to, help educate people on trauma, the 4 different types of trauma, and then how to learn how to heal from any past trauma that we've had in our body, and then how to continue to self-regulate and co-regulate going forward, and then also how we can use herbs and nutrition to support us as a regulator for that. And I've also, so with the trauma healing course and with the nutrition piece, I'm also including an energy healing session for each person. So we're doing an energy healing session just to kind of help accelerate that healing process. And then we talk about learning about trauma so that, everybody that goes through the course will be trauma informed. So even if you haven't experienced trauma, I'm sure there's somebody in your sphere of influence who has, and you just have a better understanding of, being a trauma informed human being. So we can properly, show up for ourselves, and then also, minister to other people and support each other in this process. And then just how to use everyday foods and herbs to support yourself through that.
I love that. Where can we find this?
So I've got it on Instagram. So if anybody wants to follow me on Instagram, it's just Laura.Craddock. And then, so right now I have everything on Instagram. I have my website, but I don't have the course up there. But they can go to my website. If people aren't on Instagram, they can go to my website, which is lauracraddock.co. And then they can just reach out to me through there if they're interested in registering. So I think I only have 8 spots left for the course that comes up. It starts on January the 16th. But I'm also available for individual coaching sessions, healing, and then nutrition as well.
I definitely recommend your energy healings. They are divine. Every time it's breakthrough after breakthrough. It's very, very powerful. So thank you for your magic. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I'm very excited for the course. Very excited for everyone to have more awareness around food as well. I think it's very, very powerful. And I see that also, when we talk about the age of Aquarius, I feel like it's also going back to nature, going back to our roots, and going back to really coexisting with, nature and like the natural products that nature has to offer. And yeah, I love that you're an advocate for that, being an Aquarius rising as well. So thank you for everything. I will link all of your details down below, and everyone can go stalk you. And yeah, definitely connect with Laura and the course, and help yourself by nurturing yourself to step into your magic.
Thank you.
Mhm.